Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for being here. We'd like to thank you for attending this press conference, and we'd like to remind you to hold any questions until the end. We'll have a question and answer period then. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of our local, state, and federal elected officials and first responders that have responded to this incident. They've provided instrumental support and expertise throughout this process. There will be no further updates from Springfield Township Fire or Clark County Hazmat as to the response of this incident. The Clark County Hazmat team, Norfolk Southern, and the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency have each independently examined the crash site and verified that there was no evidence of spillage at the site. There are no indications of any injuries or risk to the public. The Clark County Emergency Management Agency is continuing with our recovery phase of this incident, and we will begin our cost recovery efforts and processes with representatives from Norfolk Southern. Power has been restored to the area, and Ohio 41 between Gateway Boulevard and the Clark County Fairgrounds will remain closed until further notice as crews continue the cleanup efforts. Clark County has requested and received from Norfolk Southern the train consents. It will be available through public records request to M. Cooper, M as in Mary, Cooper, C-O-O-P-E-R, at clarkcountyohio.gov. And any further questions regarding the consist of the train shall be directed to Norfolk Southern. At this time, Clark County Combined Health District Health Commissioner Charles Patterson will give a brief update.
Thank you, Director. Good afternoon. The Clark County Combined Health District continues to monitor the situation. Technicians have been on site as rail cars have been removed to make sure that there were no releases that had previously not been known to our crews. There are no hazardous materials that have contacted the soil, been exposed to the air, or contacted any of the water sources or water recharge areas nearby where the incident occurred. We continue to be confident that the health and safety of our citizens of Clark County and the residents in this area is good. The health is good. We don't have any issues with hazardous materials. I think as you look at the contents of the train, you'll find that there were other cars with hazardous materials on them, but as they were not affected by the derailment, we do not have a situation at this time. We will continue to watch over the site. As you know, machines continue to work on that site. There have been other discussions about other oils or transmission fluid or something coming from vehicles. Each of those small spills, which occur across our city every day, they're being handled on a case-by-case basis. We will continue to monitor the situation to ensure the health of Clark County residents. Thank you.
We'd like to invite Chief Executive Officer Greta Mayer up with the Clark County Mental Health and Recovery Board.
Thank you so much. And traumatic events such as a transportation accident, sudden events like this can pose a traumatic event and become one and experience that way to many individuals. And so following an event like this, it's very common to feel different, to feel as if you have different thoughts that may be getting in the way of your everyday activities, your sleep may be disrupted, you may have feelings that are out of the norm for you, but all of those things are very normal. And even for those, especially close by to where the incident occurred, there may be some environmental triggers or factors, sirens, smells, and things like that, that may persist over time. But again, these kinds of traumatic reactions are common in the wake of an event that we've been hearing about today. And even some interpersonal relationships can be impacted with family, coworkers, and so on. And some stress-related physical symptoms can occur. But I'm outlining these things for you, and many of you already know this. that it's important to be kind to ourselves and each other in the wake of these kinds of events. And there are great helpful resources, professional resources in the Clark County community that are poised and ready to receive those calls for help. So I wanted to point out just a couple of those. One is the nonprofit agency Mental Health Services of Clark and Madison counties, and their phone number is 937-399-9500. And we also have a warm line, which is a peer support, trained and professional peer supporters, people who are trained to listen and be empathic listeners and then point people to help if it's a non-emergency. And that is 937-662-9080. And again, that's a warm line for peer support. But if someone's suicidal and experiencing a suicidal emergency, we don't want people to hesitate, and please reach out and call 988. That's a national number that you're directly connected to trained counselors that can handle those situations and point people to help. Thank you.
Norfolk Southern Senior Communications Manager, Connor Spielmaker.
Good afternoon. I'm Connor Spielmaker from Norfolk Southern. Just want to give a quick update with what's taken place since yesterday's update. Overnight and through the morning, we spent those hours clearing cars from the track and the right-of-way, which then allowed our maintenance crews to get in and begin putting in track panels, which are prefabricated sections of track. And that was finished this morning, which allowed us to reopen the rails to rail traffic at a reduced speed, while we make sure that those installations were done properly, of course, and ensure that safety is top of mind there. I do want to quickly reiterate that there were no hazardous material cars that derailed in this incident. There were 4 tanker cars, but they were not carrying hazardous materials, and they did not carry hazardous materials prior to the derailment. Over the next couple of days, we will still be working at the site. Obviously, we want to make sure we get the road reopened. We're waiting on asphalt to do that, so that'll be a couple days. And then even once the road itself is reopened, there will still be work going on out there. It will remain an active work site. So we appreciate the community's patience there and also staying away. This is heavy machinery, heavy equipment, lots of stuff moving around. I want to make sure people stay safe and out of the way. Thank you for being here and appreciate you keeping your community informed.
We'll have health department and mental health recovery join us back. We'll open this up to a few questions at this time.
Have you been in contact with the NTSB?
Yes, the NTSB did send some members today. They've arrived, I believe, just a few hours ago, so we will be working with them to investigate the incident.
Did you have to have sign-off from the NTSB before you reopened that railroad with those prefabricated sections in place?
I do not know the answer to that.
We keep hearing that there's no hazardous material that's spilled out, but we keep seeing them haul away dirt and pour down some kind of white stuff on the ground. Well, what is that?
I'm not sure about the white stuff on the ground. I do know that some plastic pellets, which is commonly used to melt down and then make plastic bags, things of that nature, were spilled. So as that's collected, they will over-collect, which will sometimes pick up dirt, and that's removed.
But we're seeing backhoes physically take dirt, put them into.
Yes, they're very, very, when I say pellets, I mean they're very small. So that, to make sure that we get that all, they will over-collect, which would include dirt.
If you talk about your go team, we thank everybody but the go team that you rely on to get those tracks back open again and take care of the debris that's on the sea currently.
Yeah, obviously, Norfolk Southern and our crews respond very quickly, including our contractors. That's our hazardous material specialists that respond to anything. It's the environmental group that just makes sure that the environment's cleaned up, even when there's no hazardous materials involved. Our contractors for re-railing, and of course, the local first responders.
What was in the package?
We just heard that these derailments can be traumatic for residents. Can you assure the residents here that they are safe? And can you assure them that this kind of thing won't happen again in their backyards? I mean, it's not just people here, it's actually people across the country.
Absolutely. And we've been very clear, over the last couple weeks especially, that we're investigating all these incidents. We're cooperating with the NTSB. We're cooperating with the local, state, federal resources to make sure that we investigate them fully, understand what could be done better, and make Norfolk Southern an even safer railroad.
Connor, from the trace amounts of diesel, exhaust fluid, and other chemicals were found in a couple of those tankers, are there any concerns with those?
I'm sorry.
Are there any concerns with those?
With the 4 that were involved,
The trace amounts of diesel exhaust.
DEF fluid, yeah, and then I believe a common ingredient used for water treatment.
But is there any concern about those trace amounts?
No, those are residue cars. I mean, those are cars that obviously were full at one point and then were used, and now they're empty, mostly empty. Those are not hazardous materials, so those are not part of the DOT's classification of a hazardous material. If there had been a leak, even then, we still would have obviously made sure it was cleaned up, but there was no leak there. No hazardous material cars were involved in the derailment.
Also, pretty early on in the East Palestine cleanup, it was indicated from Norfolk Southern and others that the crew didn't have any capability here. Are you able to say that now with this derailment?
So obviously the NTSB has arrived on scene, and there'll be the questions for any. They'll need to take any questions regarding the cause and things like that.
What about some of the businesses and homes in the area? Is Norfolk Southern supporting them in any way, putting them up in hotels?
So we are absolutely, our claims team is on the ground and working with those couple of impacted residents and businesses, including someone I just met outside here from the fairground, which again, another person I need to thank. Obviously, there's a lot of heavy machinery here. It could be a bit of an inconvenience, but we want to make sure that we get things cleaned up and the community back to normal as quickly as possible.
With a lot of events happening at the fairgrounds coming up, the road is still closed until further notice. When are we anticipating that road to open? And will Norfolk Southern, pay for any reimbursements that this fairgrounds might need?
Yeah, so the road getting reopened is obviously part of the priorities. We need to wait for asphalt to be able to actually physically put the road back. So once we have that, the road will be reopened very quickly after that. And like I said, our claims folks are working with those impacted businesses.
Any reason why the airspace is closed around this site?
I can't speak to that.
Is there anybody that can speak to that?
Yesterday, originally it was 20, then it was 28. So is there an official number of how many cars derailed?
It was 28 cars derailed.
And Connor, I know you spoke about this before, but when you speak to those people in East Palestine, you saw what happened there. Now it's been a second derailment just within the past month. I know you guys keep saying that safety is your number one concern, but the reality is people just don't believe that given what's happened. Can you address that and speak to those people who feel that way?
Sure, and listen, we know that some people feel that way. And we've been very clear that we're going to listen to these investigators, we're going to work with these investigators, identify things we can do. We also put out information this morning about some of those immediate actions we're taking. We have a 6-point safety plan that went out this morning. If you didn't grab that, I'm happy to get it for you, including we also previously announced the reinspection and recalibration of all of our wayside hot bearing detectors across our network, which is about 1,000 of those. That's ongoing today. Working on as well.
You know there's a level of distrust here, right?
Yeah, which is why we're out here being as transparent as possible and making sure the community knows that we both, wherever we operate, safety comes first. And I want to make sure someone had an answer to the airspace question.
Actually, I can answer the airspace question. The airspace is still closed until 7:01 p.m. today. That was to make sure that if we had any other reasons to put drones up from our hazmat crews, Ohio EPA crews, or Ohio Public Safety Department, that we would be able to fly them without any issues. We also are directly in the flight pattern for the main runway at Springfield Beckley Airport. And so if they were coming on an instrument approach, they would be coming directly through this area. We wanted to make sure that we didn't have any other incidents caused by this incident. And so that's why that was in place, and that's why it was extended. At 7:02 today, this evening, it will be open, and you would be able to fly drones or take any other pictures of the site.
Can I ask you for the 6-point safety plan? We appreciate that tangible info. And we see that's what you're pushing for, but we also know what lawmakers on Capitol Hill are pushing for. So we're wondering, as part of that plan, why not include in that you will be alerting state and local authorities whenever any hazardous material is coming through?
Following this question, we'll take 2 more questions, and then we do have a meeting to get to with the NTSB.
So we work with a variety, every community we operate in through our Operation Awareness and Response program to train first responders on incidents that could happen and usually don't. Again, what we're looking at in East Palestine is a very, very rare incident. But we work across our network every year training hundreds and even thousands of first responders on how to respond to any train derailment. As part of that, we also work with them to provide commodity flow information so they can prepare specifically for the commodities that come through their community. Does that help?
But in East Palestine, it was literally that the sign melted off. So even with the training, those first responders couldn't have known what they were showing up to. And if they got an alert ahead of time, they might have been able to.
So anything about the real cars there, I have to refer you to the NTSB.
Why not include
Trackside detectors in East Palestine gave you some indications there were problems before the derailment happened. What can you tell us about trackside detectors here? Did they give you any warning? Did any of them go off before this derailment happened?
So anything with investigation as the cause in this incident would have to refer to the NTSB. But I will tell you, as part of that plan release earlier today, we are our average wayside detector distance between detectors on Norfolk Southern is about 14 miles. We're making sure that that is true across the network. So we're expecting to add a couple hundred wayside detectors to bring that distance even shorter where it needs to be made shorter. I do want to be very cognizant that these folks have a meeting to get to, so we could take one more question.
It was announced there was no hazardous material on these derailed cars, but also we learned today that there was hazardous material on this train. How close of a call was this?
I mean, I'm not going to speculate on how close of a call it was. Obviously, safety at Norfolk Southern is a priority. I've talked ad nauseum about how important safety is and what we're doing to make sure that we learn from every incident. There were no hazardous material cars involved in this derailment, and that's what's important here.
How far from the derailment were the cars carrying hazardous material?
Why isn't NTSB here?
Yeah, NTSB is on site at this point, so that would be a question for them. We want to thank you all for coming today. We appreciate your questions. We being the county, www.clarkcountyohio.gov, have a web page